Hello and welcome to another episode or time with the Business of You podcast. I'm still playing with the idea of renaming the podcast, but this is Pamela Horton, coach, executive holistic coach, and your host. And today I have a really special guest who I had the privilege of meeting several months back, and her name is Kristine Casart. And you are in for a real treat in meeting this lovely woman. She is brave, she is courageous, and she is just a beautiful soul. And it is my deep honor to be able to introduce you all to her today. Before I bring her on and have her start speaking of her story and telling us a little bit about herself, allow me to share with you just a little bit from what I know about Kristine. I got to meet her at a networking event that was held and hosted by our good friend and the team of Bluebird in Sarasota, Florida, our friend Joe Morris-Beneshu. And we got to talking for a few minutes, and I was just, I felt an instant connection to you, Kristine. Really just drawn to your gentle nature. And I think we were in a conversation for not even 5 minutes, and I said, may I please interview you? At that time, I didn't even know that you were an author of a book yet. I mean, I just was drawn into your energy. And so Kristine is the founder of the Mom Vegan Love Movement and author of the upcoming book, the Unconventional Addict, using the power of addiction to step into your higher purpose. And boy, did I just get a body load of goosebumps or God bumps of affirmation when I just said that out loud. Kristine has a passion for life and showing people just how amazing it is to live a plant-based and sober life. And she's the mother of 3 kind-hearted children. And I know that she loves being a mom. And I know that she's an amazing mother at that. And 3 rescue dogs. So originally from Sweden, she and her family are thriving in sunny Florida. Welcome, 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 Kristine.
Thank you so much. It's my pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Thank you for giving us your time. And I'm grateful to hear that you feel it's your pleasure to be with us. So Kristine, I meant what I said. I mean, there was almost like an instant drawing in, very compelling. You were very kind. Again, I had no idea that you were even an author at that point, but your energy just drew me in. And if you would be so kind as to share us a little bit about why the Unconventional Addict? What was the catalyst for that?
Oh, wow. That's such a great big question. I've been feeling called to writing my story for a good 20 years, but I just wasn't ready at that time. I knew that I had a message that I wanted to share, but I hadn't quite processed a lot of the emotions at that time when I first sat down in my late 20s to write. And I guess I just had to live more, process more, heal more to be able to share from this place. I think when I first started feeling the urge, I was still very angry. I had a lot of anger within, like, how did this happen to me? Why? I had not even started my recovery journey. The thought at that point to even consider being sober, it wasn't even on the table. But I've had this calling that I'm here for a reason, that I've been put on this earth to just help people, and I didn't really know how. And the reason I finally felt like this was the time was a friend of mine. I ran into her and I asked her what was new, and she said she was writing her first book and that she was working with a coach. And it felt like this giant neon sign just came down from the sky. It's like, this is your sign. Like, this is your time. You're gonna get help. And it's so interesting too, growing up in Sweden and feeling the calling to write this book in English as my second language, having somebody hold my hand through that process felt even more beneficial for me. And also being a perfectionist and wanting to do everything perfect from the get-go stopped me from even trying. you know, so having somebody kind of like physically hold my hand, like, you got this is we're gonna help you get the story out. So I've been working with this coach. Her name is Lisa J, and it's been life transforming.
So I like what you said about the perfectionism even stopping you from even trying to share your story. And I really feel in your heart, being a heart-led woman and professional and author, and the movement, the vegan movement, I really felt that you were stopped as a result of the perfectionism from even sharing the story and writing the book. Are you feeling comfortable to share the experiences that you had, not in detail, whatever you want? What was the trauma that brought you to a state of addiction? What was it that you were trying to avoid? There's two questions there.
Yeah. Yeah, I write about this in the book too, that I had hidden this trauma so deep inside of me because I wasn't believed. So just having those layers kind of add up, like, is it just in my head? But my body kept the score. So I had to like keep going back to that and take away those layers and find that root cause again that I've been so desperately trying to get away from by, you know, physically moving. Like I said, I grew up in Sweden in my 20s. I basically ran away. I went on this trip. It was going to be a 6-month trip with my friend. And I ended up basically not returning from that trip because I met the man that was going to become my husband at the end of that trip. But so it wasn't really until in my 30s that I allowed myself to remember what had happened. And it was sexual abuse as a child. And it like painted my whole worldview. And what I'm learning as well is not necessarily that it's the trauma that causes the most damage. It's the stories we make up around what happened. Like, so not having been believed for me made me feel abandoned, alone, almost like crazy. Like, why would I make up stories like that? Who am I? And just feeling like reaching out for help is not an option because then people don't believe you or you're a burden. So it's like this huge story that I made up of what had happened, and not being held and loved. And it's somebody saying, I'm sorry that happened to you. So a lot of my work has been to like reparent myself and go back to that little inner child and just saying, I am sorry. I'm really sorry that happened to you. I'm sorry you weren't protected and believed, and you are worthy of unconditional love and feeling safe. And you don't have to numb, which is what addiction turned into for me. Just the soothing from outside sources, but not in a way that was actually good for my body. But, you know, our addictions lie to us. So yes, the cigarettes helped temporarily. They were my best friends for 20 plus years. Then the alcohol, I found soothing in food, just all these outside elements, you know, but it's really like just getting to the core of shifting the mindset around that. No, you get to treat yourself with love and respect, and look at these friends. Like, what are they really doing for you?
Yeah, thank you for that. You had mentioned I have deep compassion for anybody that goes through any type of trauma. I started my career off as a social worker working with adolescents and children and families, victims of domestic violence, mental, emotional abuse, sexual abuse. I even started the first multidisciplinary investigation team in the towns of Enfield and Suffield, Connecticut, to investigate cases and families that had incest and sexual abuse, as well as working with the perpetrators, who typically are victims as well. And so I have deep compassion for you, and I admire your strength and your courage and your heart. Uh, you mentioned earlier that you really felt like your story was meant to help people and that your life, you had a purpose. Do you feel like everybody has a purpose?
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
for sure. For sure. I think that we can, oh, yeah, most definitely.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
just,
Because
yeah,
go ahead.
it's just a matter of finding out what it is. And I think we have a choice of, I felt like a lot of my life, I spent asleep, not wanting to find that deeper purpose. It's more surviving than thriving. It's such a cliche, but really just having my blinders on, just like, okay, how can I, for me, like make it to the weekend? Because when on the weekend, I'm going to have fun, and fun meant, drinking to blackout. But of course I was alive, but I was so unaware of what my purpose was, or like thinking maybe it was getting to Saturday. Maybe that was my purpose. But I was so asleep. But yes, I do for sure think that if we're just courageous and willing enough to do the work, we will all just find what that reason is. And it may be one reason today, and it might evolve into something else too. And it might shift, but it's most certainly there. Yes.
Yeah. They say, there's a saying, and I may not say it correctly, but the things that we go through, the things that we overcome are the very things we're meant to help others and lift them out, right? So when we lift others, we ourselves rise. And so when we go through whatever it is, divorce, abuse, addiction, whatever, all of the above, whatever it is, those items are the things, those experiences are the things that we're meant to help others out of, so that we can all awaken, so that we can all realize our worth and our value. And I really, like I said, I really just want to honor you again. I really value your contribution to humanity, because now more than ever, waking up is the most important time to, right now, I'm encouraging everyone to wake up, which is why I have these conversations with people, and people such as yourself. And it's why I do the work that I do in coaching. Um, Another question I have for you is the title of your book, The Unconventional Addict. And by the way, guys, if I'm gonna ask you later on, Kristine, where it is that they're going to be able to find it. But the subtitle, the title itself, the full title is The Unconventional Addict, Using the Power of Addiction to Step into Your Higher Purpose. Talk to us about that second line. What's the congruity there? What is the process there?
Well, what I've learned during recovery is that having an addictive personality can be an asset. Because I don't do anything half-ass, excuse my language.
It's
I
welcome here.
I go all in, right? And I went all in with my addiction. I went all in with anything that I call my addictive personality, Samantha. I shared that in the Bluebird speech.
I'm going to be asking about Samantha in a moment, but please continue.
but she just kind of gets the smell and whiff or something and then goes all in. Like at one point I really wanted to learn how to take photos, because that was after my children were born, and I just had this, it's like this urge, like it felt like a purpose in the moment. It's like figure out how to take beautiful pictures. So what I did was that I spent hours and hours in like self-study university, like YouTube, like internet, like Google, books, like going out, practicing photography, learning everything I could about lenses and cameras. And with the force that I learned that, I bet I got myself a master's degree in photography, like in like no time. That's kind of what I'm talking about. But that's also the force that could and would, if I picked up a drink today, would be the end of me, because I would go out and not have one drink. I will go out and have countless, and then if that the drinks would make this body feel sick, I would get rid of that one way or another and then keep drinking. So same force, but when applied to something good, can move mountains. So that's really what I want and get rid of that shame around addiction, because the fact that I did like the first 5 years of my sobriety without telling a soul, that I want to help people with, because we don't have to be ashamed. Addiction is a genius way to numb past hurts.
Yeah.
And we're not alone. There's so many people that do it. So why try to reinvent the wheel? That's hard for me to say as a Swede with the V's and the W's.
Well done.
But it's just like, why try to do these things on our own when there's help out there?
Mm-hmm.
You know,
that shame, guilt, those are
mm-hmm.
just, they're lies. They keep the lies with the purpose of trying to keep us separate. There's so many stories and cultures that speak about this, whether it's something evil that's keeping us from our divine spark and our higher selves, whatever the cause is, it's a lie. And there are all kinds of addictions, whether it's, you mentioned food earlier, workaholism. I know that that's something that I struggled with, and you and I share not only veganism, but we share jumping right in. And there's no in between. It's all or nothing. I mean, all of the years I've had to really massage and work on that. So, okay. So talk to us a little bit about Samantha. How were you introduced to her? And who is she?
Oh my goodness. I think that writing this book really helped me see how amazing she is. And just naming her, the name came to me because I used to watch Sex and the City, and I thought Samantha in that show was just so fierce. She didn't give a shit about anything, and she was just so fiery and fearless, you know. And that's how I see this part of me, is she's so brave. Like I was sharing in the speech, like she's the one that went up to Joe, the founder of Bluebird, and said she wanted to speak. She has no fear. And it's not me, because if I would describe myself, I would describe myself as an introvert. I love being home. I don't really people. Like, I just, like, if I could choose, I would rather just be in my own little bubble at home.
Mm-hmm.
But then I have this part of me, which I've named Samantha, who just like has so much to say and doesn't care that I don't speak English fluently, and that I don't always come up with the perfect words to say. Like, that doesn't matter. So she's just pretty badass, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And it's so cool to have that. And she's also the one that would get me into trouble. Like, she would be, you know, up on the bars singing and doing all these drinking games and making new friends, and those friends would just maybe not be the best friends. And
Mm-hmm.
but, you know, again, it's just like channeling. So if I can befriend my inner addiction, my inner Samantha, whatever you want to call her, I think together we can just really fulfill this purpose that we're here to fulfill, you know. Like, we can partner up.
Would you say there's a lot of talk about shadow work in the world of coaching and counseling and therapy? Is Samantha the shadow side of you?
Oh, yes, but I want to take her out of the shadows. I don't want
Yeah.
her to see her as something negative. I think but that's I think I want to do more work on that. That's a good question. Because I think she was born out of trauma. I think she was born out of having to be that, okay, so we're on our own. We're 7 years old. Okay, what do we have to do? What do we got to do to survive? You know, so she comes from there.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that, and she came to, like, but if I can put it, I really like spinning it into a positive frame of mind. Like, wow, she did that. What else can she do? You know, yes, she was born from trauma, but how can we work together to use that power into helping our world, you know?
What the images that's coming to mind is the lotus flower, right? It's born
Mm-hmm.
from the mud and the muck at the bottom of the pond, and it goes through the waters, the muddy waters, and then they start to get clear. The closer they get to the light, the higher self absorbing, working through the work, and then blooms into this most magnificent, gorgeous image, living being, just floating on the water. And so as you were describing that, and I really appreciate you wanting to go from the negative to the positive with her, because that's, we are all of it. You would not be who you are today if it were not for the trauma. You would not have written the book if you didn't have experiences with addiction or alcohol, or we have a few moments actually. What I'm about to say is, if it wasn't for what you've gone through, you would not have had that final night at the bar where your husband did not take you home. So do you feel comfortable sharing that story? Like, was that the last straw? Was that the light bulb that said, okay, something needs to change? Or was it something different?
No, for sure. That night, basically what had happened up until that point, that we would go out pretty much every weekend, and he would always get me home. So it was safe for me, Samantha, to come out and completely let loose, because I knew he would always get me home. And it's so hard to, in hindsight, like being in that moment, seeing how addicted I was, because I was just doing what everybody else was doing. You just kind of put your, just head down, work Monday through Friday. Saturday we would let loose because we deserved it, because life was hard, and now we were gonna get to finally have some fun. So I wouldn't really stand out that much in my way of drinking. I was just doing what everybody else did, except for I never want to go home. I never, ever, ever wanted the party to end. And usually Tim would come with me, my husband. He would come with me, and at some point he would just get me home. No, so it felt safe. But at this particular night, we had been out drinking, and it was just like a regular night, I would say, in many, many regards. The alcohol that we had ran out, and Samantha made new friends that had some more, and same pattern. Just the difference was that when we got off the station, the train at our station, and I like, oh, I want to, let's keep the party going. He said no. And not even a conscious choice on his part. I think he was just really tired, because it had been like an all day of drinking. Normal people would be tired. The normal right thing would be to go home. But I don't think he had it in me to do the normal, just back and forth argument about, like, okay. So he left, and I just remember fragments from the rest of that evening, just not really remembering how I got home. I have this like image of a green lush lawn just kind of flashing before my eyes. So I might have passed out on my neighbor's lawn. I don't know. I don't remember how I got home. And usually what would happen when I woke up the next day, my husband and I would, I call it like a sad game of hangover clue. We together would like patch together the previous night, because I have a lot of anxiety as a sober in sobriety, and a people pleaser, codependent people pleaser. So the thought of having hurt anybody, offended anybody, made a fool out of myself on a normal day is overwhelming. And so then you add the drinking to that, when I have no inhibition, say and do whatever. And my husband would usually say that I've just been funny, caring, singing, dancing queen at the bar, on top of the bar. Usually just been like the center of the party. But until I had like closed all those little like parts of my brain where maybe I had hurt somebody, I couldn't relax. So usually it would take me a good week, but I could get there because he would help me. Oh, you did this, you said that. Maybe you should call this person because they may have misunderstood this. And so then I would like, what Samantha had. But this time I didn't know. And I had also started doing a lot more self-care at that point. I started seeing a therapist and really kind of started digging deeper into why I was drinking and why I was so anxious and depressed. And just waking up that next morning, it was just fear. Like, what did I do? Almost like waking up in my life and like, you have 2 kids. What are you doing? But also in that moment, knowing that, as I, shared too, it's like I would Google, am I an alcoholic? And the answer was no. So how could I get help? Like, how do I do this? Like, how do I get started? I just knew the pattern. I was going to feel like shit Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, a little bit better, Thursday, and then Friday, don't remember. I'm like, I don't want to do this anymore. No, no. But it felt almost impossible to stop that train.
Yeah. Amazing, amazing story, amazing learning, amazing courage and practice and time and consistency. Thank you for your openness today and your willingness to share your story. Thank you to Tim, that's your husband's name, for saying no, for being too tired to continue on.
Yeah.
Seriously. I know a lot of people in our world that are suffering and that are on a pattern that they're not even aware of. So kudos to you also for your self-awareness and making time for your self-care and wanting to understand the why behind certain things, right? That's usually a great catalyst as well, just questioning why or recognizing that there is a pattern, maybe not knowing what the exact pattern is, but recognizing, okay, there is a pattern here. What is it? And being curious enough. And that's actually, thank you for your curiosity too. If there's any one thing that you want the listeners to walk away from today with, what would that be?
That you're never alone. You're never, ever alone. And mental health, I feel, is like my number one priority these days. I get to put myself first. You get to put yourself first. If you feel like your intuition is telling you that there's a problem, you get to trust that. It doesn't matter what Google says or what everybody around you says. If your little inner voice is saying, hey, no, we need to do something different, and you don't feel like the people in your surrounding can help you, keep reaching out for help. Like, find a therapist. Coda, AA, all these groups are online now. If you feel like what I felt, like I would get laughed out the room and go into an AA meeting, you don't even have to turn on your camera. You can use a different name. You can just go listen in on the conversations and knowing that you're not alone. Because what I found during my recovery is that maybe I was an alcoholic, but I am a codependent, checking all the boxes, the boxes. So there, if you go to coda.org, there are meetings and they're on Zoom, and they're like once every half hour, I would say, of every day. So just check that out, see if that's for you. Even I went to one Coda meeting and I'm like, oh, this is not for me. Then it took me a good year to go back. It said to go to at least 5 meetings, maybe even 6. Try different meetings. They're also different. Just don't give up on yourself and find your tribe. Maybe you can talk to a friend, and if that person is going to push you down and say, no, you don't have a problem, that says more about them than it does about you. So just keep listening into that inner voice. Just like you get to do that. You get to love yourself. You get to feel good. Life is supposed to feel good. What? Just like, remember that. And you don't have to, you're never alone. And people are more than welcome to reach out to me too. I'll be happy to help in any way I can.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you. Where can they find your book and how can they find you?
Oh, good question. I can be found on Instagram under Mom Vegan Love. It's all one word. Or I also have the momveganlove.com. And right now, if you're interested in the book, you can go to theunconventionaladdict.com and sign up, and then you'll be one of the first people to know when it's released.
Wonderful. Thank you. I'll also include these links and Kristine's Instagram account in the description below. If you are, I loved what you said, Kristine. If you are someone who is feeling like something is off or could be done differently within your care of yourself or your own life patterns or related to work or going out every weekend or whatever the case may be, you are not alone. Trust your intuition. You get to trust your intuition. The more that you do, the better the practice and the discernment muscle gets exercised. Kristine, myself, there's the AA, CODA, there's so many resources for you available. And just like Kristine said, if you share your story or what your concern is with somebody and they do not have the compassion or they put you down in any way or even laugh or try to have you continue in the reindeer games, that is somebody that they are reflecting who they are. It is not a reflection of who you are. And so thank you for joining us today. Kristine, thank you for your heart, for your experience, for sharing it with us. And thank you for just tuning in. If you like today's conversation, please give us a like, share it with others that you feel like it would be beneficial for. And until next time, thanks everybody. Let's see.